Hi, everybody. It's Dr. Z, and welcome to another episode of Next Up Narcissism. Today, we are talking about something so important in the context of narcissistic abuse, something that a lot of people don't realize is a form of abuse, but can be so damaging. So, I want to help you see the signs of it, when you notice it, how you handle it, and that is financial abuse. So, I hope this episode gives you some clarity and information so that you can use it whether in your own situation or you can apply it to somebody else's. Hello, everybody. It's Dr. Z, and welcome back to another episode of Next Up Narcissism. Today, we are talking about something that I'm not sure people really know about. Most of the time, they'll have experienced it, but they don't know what to call it and they don't know it's a thing. And that is financial abuse. So let's get into it. What is financial abuse? Financial abuse is something, or I'm going to say a strategy, a chronic strategy that a narcissist uses in a relationship. This could be business, it could be friendship, it could be an intimate relationship. Let's use a marriage just for the sake of an example. So when financial abuse begins, depends on a bunch of things. First, again, it depends on the type of relationship. And it's going to look different in the beginning of the relationship than it is at the end, like most things with narcissistic abuse. So let's talk about what it is in general. Financial abuse is when the narcissist uses finances for the sole purpose of control, manipulation, and power. Again, you're going to hear me talk about the function of behaviors all the time because it's not just, not allowing you access to your funds. Again, the underlying function or the why is to gain power and control. That's the function of the behavior. However you dress that up, whether it's financial abuse, it's emotional abuse, it's gaslighting. That is the behavior, but the underlying function is the same. It's a strategy to gain power and control over you. So financial abuse obviously has to do with money, but let's talk about what it actually looks like. So in the beginning of a relationship, financial abuse starts as love bombing in a sense. Things like, well, you know what? One of these days, I'm just gonna take care of you. I'm gonna take care of you for the rest of your life. You don't need to work. Like, I just want you to stay home, relax, just do what you want to do. You deserve it. Okay. Or, you know what? I have a great idea. Let's quit our jobs and go into business together. Okay. Or, you know what? You should quit your job and come work for me. Okay. So on the surface and in the beginning of a relationship, this sounds fabulous. Why? Because in the beginning stages of a relationship, it gives you a sense of comfort, right? It makes you believe that this other person is invested in you, right? Because they're making these long-term plans with you where your finances are interconnected. And that's a big deal, right? When you finally join accounts with somebody, one day when you're married or even with business partners, it's a big deal. You have to really trust them. So this all looks great because it's in the context of love bombing, right? So it starts like that. And then, like everything else with narcissistic abuse, it starts to slowly become more manipulative, more outwardly manipulative, more controlling, and it doesn't have that love bombing, I want to take care of you aura around it. Okay. So as the relationship progresses, little things will start to happen. Like, let's say you go shopping and you buy yourself a new pair of shoes. You come home and your partner says to you, you bought another pair of shoes? And you say, well, yeah. And they say, why? I don't know, because I liked them. You have so many shoes. Now, I know some of you are listening saying, okay, this is a conversation I have all the time with my husband or with my wife, but it's a common conversation, right? Out of the context of narcissistic abuse, and this I'm going to do in another episode, these isolated events look so benign that everybody has those. How many times has somebody said, or your spouse, your significant other said, "Did you really need to buy that? Don't you have so many?" We've all had that. When you explain that out of context with all the other manipulative, subtle behaviors, it looks like no big deal, which is why it's so hard to communicate narcissistic abuse to people, because you don't even know where to start, because it's not an isolated event. It's a culmination of very subtle manipulations, very subtle controlling behaviors, like a leaky faucet. It just doesn't really matter until your whole house is flooded. So that's why I want to let people know what it looks like in the beginning, because it feels really good. I mean, who wouldn't want someone to say to them, I want to take care of you? I'm not saying you'd quit your job, but it just feels good. So little things like that start to happen. Well, why did you get them? And you don't need them, and it's a waste of money. Or they may make you, let's say it's tax season, right? And you're doing your taxes. You've always done your taxes. You know what you're doing. And they say, "You're doing this wrong. You're doing that wrong. You're doing this wrong." And they convince you over time, you don't know how to do your taxes. You don't know how to spend money properly. You don't know how to invest properly. You don't know how to manage your money, period. And because of the subtle manipulation, because of the gaslighting over time, again, this isn't sudden, you're going to start to believe them like you believe the other things, the other lies and narrative that they're giving you, that they're feeding you. So now you believe that you suck at managing your money. Forget that you've always managed your money, but now you suck at it. And not only that, but now they do your taxes because you're not capable of it. And you start to believe that, not to mention your head's already foggy because of sleeplessness, or you're not eating well, or you're trying to walk on eggshells all the time. So you're cognitively exhausted. So, you're probably not paying attention to details as much. So it all snowballs. Some other examples of financial abuse are you have no credit cards in your name, or they take out a ton of credit cards in your name without you knowing, or but you're not allowed to use them. I think one of the most jarring, and I mean, I've seen a ton of patients where this is the case, but one of the most jarring conversations I had about financial abuse was I was working with a woman. She was fairly young. She was in her 20s. She was married. They didn't have kids. And we were talking about, how she had anxiety, obviously, about, merging their lives together, right? Merging their finances together. And one of the biggest things was she didn't know how she was going to keep track of her, what she spent, right? Or, what money was coming in and what was going out. And I said, "Well, you can log into your account and look at that." And she said, "Well, I don't have the passwords." It's like, "Oh, well, just you can call the bank. You can do this. You can, say that you forgot your password." And her response to me was, "I'm not allowed." And I remember at that moment thinking, again, I've been doing this a long time, but just sometimes when you hear these comments, it kind of just, wow, and it made me realize how in this she was, that she was so used to not being allowed to do basic things for herself. And she wasn't allowed to have the passwords. And the reason that her spouse gave her was that she's not able to be trusted with money because she spends too much. She has a shopping problem. She mismanages the funds all the time. He doesn't trust her with the money. So she doesn't have access to the money. So not only did she not know what she had at any given time, but she didn't know how he was spending the money. And that wasn't even a conversation. That wasn't even on the table. This was all about protecting their funds from her. right? Um, so so back to what it actually looks like. Things like not having your passwords to your accounts, having no idea, even basic, where your investments are, where your money is, whose name is on what. Okay. Now let's switch it away from actual finances and let's go into spending behaviors, right? Or independent use of finances. You may be given, quote, an allowance that, and I'm not talking about you're a stay-at-home mom, or you have a job and you make significantly less. And so every week, you guys put a certain amount of money in your account, and that's your money for grocery, whatever. That's your money for the week. And it's helpful for you too, because it helps you budget, right? And people do that all the time. They'll transfer money into their daily account, and that's what they use for the week. But that's not what I'm talking about. You are given an allowance, and that allowance is contingent on God knows what. One week you get $500, and one week you get $10. And when you ask why, they tell you because they don't trust you with money. Or they say, I don't like the way that you bought this and this. Or you didn't have sex with me last night. Yeah, that happens. I didn't like the way you spoke to me. Or they don't even give a reason. They just say, you got $5 because that's what you're worth. I mean, these are all things I have heard over the years. So not only do you not have access to the funds unless purposely given them, but you also have no control over how much you're getting and when you're getting it. So if you think about a paycheck, right? You know without fail that every 2 weeks you're going to get paid, and you know exactly what you're going to get paid, and you know exactly what your job description is. You have no anxiety about that. I mean, you may have anxiety, but you don't have anxiety about getting paid. But what if I said to you, you know what? I'm going to pay you, but I'm not going to tell you how much, and I'm not going to tell you when. Just when you think you figured it out, I'm going to totally fuck with you and change all the rules. That's what you're dealing with. So that is financial abuse. It's not even about the money. It's the function of that behavior, withholding money, or being in total control of it, control over it. That's what it's about. It's about control, manipulation, and power. Money is just the vehicle in which they do it. And you'll see this too when you're going through a divorce with a narcissist. One of the things they do, in addition to dragging you through court for years so that you spend money, but also they do whatever they can to pay you as little as they can. Why? Because it's another way to control you. They do the same thing with the kids, which is a whole other discussion for another whole other podcast. And we're going to have a very cool guest for that. So stay tuned. So another thing that happens, and this one's probably the one that bothers me the most. When you have to account for everything you bought. Now, I'm not talking about you go out and you make a huge purchase. Like you go, like if I wouldn't just go and buy a car without discussing it, right? Maybe some people would, and that's their understanding within the relationship. I wouldn't just go and buy, go on a, $1,000 shopping spree. There's certain things that, and again, this is specific to each relationship. What I'm talking about is needing to account for literally everything you buy. Going to the mall and wanting to buy an eyeshadow palette for $20. And you need to call and ask permission. And it's not about the $20. Again, it's about power and control. And who knows? Maybe they'll say yes. Maybe they'll say no because you didn't have sex with them. Or maybe they'll say no just because they don't like that you went out with your friends last night. Who knows? But it's about that need to get permission, which is manipulation and control and power. That is very much financial abuse, is having to account for it. Or, going to the grocery store. I've seen this too. And coming home and having to make a list of everything you bought with the price. They don't care how much it was. They don't give a shit what you bought. It has nothing to do with it. Again, it's the function, the why. And the why is, yep, you got it, power, control, and manipulation. The other thing it does is it absolutely exhausts you. It makes you feel totally incompetent in terms of how to manage your money. And you begin to believe over time that you suck at this, right? That you are incapable of managing your finances. Here's another reason why they do this. Because if you don't have access to your finances, if you feel like you are incapable of managing your finances and you don't even know where to start, you don't know where your money is, yet you can't even log into your passwords. The bills, nothing's in your name. Or it's all in your name and they don't pay them on time. So it's your credit that's being ruined, right? Or they have credit cards out in your name and they run, $10,000 up on 4 different cards. They don't pay it. It's in your name. Right? Again, this can happen in friendships, this can happen in business, this can happen in relationships before you're married. I mean, it doesn't matter. But let's talk about relationships for a second. What is the benefit of having somebody keep money from you, not allow you access, and make you feel totally incompetent? What is the other benefit of that? The benefit of that is to keep you stuck so that you can't leave. Because when you leave a narcissist, one of the things that is on this kind of checklist that I give people when I work with them is make sure that you have access to funds. And most people don't. So what I tell them to do is to, if it's safe, go to the bank or have somebody do it for you and set up an account that they don't know about, they don't have access to. It's at a totally different bank. It has nothing to do with anything. I always say different bank because you don't want things crossing over or them going to the bank and and somebody saying, which account are you talking about? And wait, what's that account? So set it up. And then when you can, $20 you deposit here, $20 you deposit there. And over time that adds up. You need enough to be able to get out of the house, let's say, and get a hotel room or put a down payment on an apartment or initial, consult legal fees, or food for your kids, right? Because the narcissist isn't going to care about that. So you want to make sure that you have funds to be able to leave. One of the biggest reasons why people stay in these relationships is that financially they cannot leave. They feel stuck. They have no money. And, it's something that we overlook a lot, I feel like, because, we always think about the emotional aspect of it. We always think about the the strengths and weaknesses, like why couldn't they leave and why couldn't they do that? If it was so bad, they should have just gotten out of there. And that's, you can't, it doesn't work like that. They can't leave because they have no money. They can't leave because they're scared to death. How are they going to pay for things? So one of the other things that happen, we're doing great today. So one of the other things that happens is that over time, they may tell you they don't want you working. Sometimes what happens is the narcissist will tell you they don't want you working because they want to take care of you, right? That's what they say in the beginning. So you stop working. You give up your job. You give up your career. You're going to stay at home with the kids. Very important job. And so you're confident and you're comfortable with this, right? Because this is what you're going to do. But that's not what it is. That's what you're made to think it is. But really what it is giving up a couple things. One, access to funds, because you're not getting paid for anything, right? Because we don't get paid for staying home with our kids, right? But that's a whole other thing. You are giving up your career. So it's a massive sense of independence. Narcissists do not want you to be independent from them because it's less control for them, less power. So working is something that takes you away from their control and power because they don't have access to your job, right? They don't have access to you in terms of your job stress. Like if you're going to be stressed, they want to be the ones that cause it. Like they don't want you. It's not okay if you're stressed because of your job. If you're going to be stressed, they want to be the ones to implement that. Okay. It's also something that takes the attention away from them, takes the spotlight away from them. There's been plenty of times where I come home from work and I'm stressed out about something and I'm stressed out about work. Does that take away from my conversations with other people in my family? Absolutely. We're human. A narcissist will not like that. They will not like that. Okay. So there's that. The other thing it does is it also takes the spotlight off of them. Let's say that the person has a really, really good career, right? Or they've been working in this field for a long time and they're well known and they have a lot of colleagues and coworkers and they're well respected. The narcissist is going to hate that. Okay. They want that for themselves. So they're going to have you stop working, or they're going to tell you to work with them. So it looks like they're supporting you and you're going to do this amazing thing together. But really what's happening is now they control your job. Now they control your salary. Now they control how many hours you work. I mean, it's a perfect storm. And so it looks like, again, on the surface, they're doing this because they want to do something great with you. But really what they're doing is they're taking away your financial independence, taking away your social independence, taking away your career independence, your job, your ability to, give back to the community. I mean, your ability to just function as an independent adult. Okay. And now again, to the outside world, it may look like you have this really supportive spouse, who you gave up your career and now you're home and they're taking care of you and they're going to handle everything. I mean, it looks good for them. It looks so great and how strong your relationship is and how amazing it is that you guys work together now. Like that's the cutest thing ever. No, it's not. Not in this situation. No, it's one more way, again, control, power, manipulation. So that is financial abuse. And it's really important that you understand how complex financial abuse is, because on the surface, it doesn't look that way all the time. And it sure as hell doesn't look like that to other people outside. And when, like I said before, when you try to explain it to somebody, it doesn't really sound right. I mean, if you say to somebody, I quit my job and I'm working with my significant other, and I feel like I can't do what I used to do, somebody may say like, how lovely is that they want you to work with them, right? Or you have somebody that, tells you stay home and you do what you want to do, take care of the kids and just, just you deserve to stay home and not work. And as if you don't have kids, let's say you deserve to stay home. You've worked so hard for most of your life. Just take a break. I'll handle it. Out of context, you say that to somebody that's like, I want that. Wow, that's amazing. Such a great wife, such a great husband, whatever. No, they're not. No, they're not. Not in this case. But again, out of context, it sounds great. And because you're not going to get people saying, oh my God, I can't believe they did that, you're going to start to shut down. You're going to start to not tell people these things because you're going to feel like you're overreacting. That's what they want. And lastly, the other thing that it does by having you stay home, give up your career or work with them, or not allow you to go shopping or not allow you to spend money, it isolates you even more. The anxiety of going to the market for somebody who is financially abused by their significant other is so intense. And the narcissist knows this. They want access to your emotions at all times. So if you are out at the market, you are not currently physically present with them. So they don't have direct access to you, but they know that you are so anxious shopping because if you dare spend anything more than they quote let you, it's going to be an issue. Or if you buy the wrong thing, or you spend too much or too little, but they're probably not even telling you what that limit is. So you have so much anxiety, and they know this. That's what they want. They want access to your emotions at all times. And now they have it. Now you're anxious because of them at the market, because you don't know how much to spend. And I see this all the time. So it's very important to understand the nuances of financial abuse so that you can spot it early on. And again, it is not an isolated event. It's not just, somebody saying to you, one day we should work together. I think that'd be really cool. And you talk about it. That alone is not narcissistic abuse. Please understand that. It is a culmination of these tiny little things in addition to love bombing, in addition to, all the warning signs that we have, saying all my exes were crazy, or, all of those little things, or not respecting your boundaries. As you get into the relationship, these little things like having to report back, or your name not being on things, or, them saying, well, why don't we give you a set amount each week and you can just do whatever you want with it. Okay. All of these things taken together is what makes up financial abuse. But again, the overarching function is power, manipulation, and control. And I'm going to throw in social isolation, because not only does it keep you from people, you're not at your job, so you're not associating with colleagues. You're not really out and about doing things because you're too scared to spend the money. So you just say, forget it, I'm not going to go shopping. So you're really home, isolated. And you're not going to tell people, because every time you've told people, it kind of looked a little weird because it didn't really make sense. So that's the other piece of this. And it keeps you stuck in this relationship, because it's really hard to leave when you don't have money and you have no access to it. So that's it for this episode. I hope this was helpful. I hope it clarified things. I get a ton of questions on this all the time. And I think it's really important, particularly for females, because I think females in general, growing up, we're not really taught how to invest. We're not taught to, really how to manage our money, how to be fiscally independent and responsible. It's maybe we're taught it, but we're not taught it, I think, well enough, to be honest with you. So I think this is also really important for females for that as well. So that's it for today. And again, I hope that this was helpful. I hope this gave you some sense of empowerment. And I hope this gave you some information to be able to look at your own situation, or be able to look at somebody else's situation and understand maybe what they're going through. And I will see you next time on Next Up Narcissism. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Next Up Narcissism. I hope you found it useful, but most importantly, I hope you found it validating. Want to work one-on-one with me? Visit my website at drjamiezuckerman.com to book a personalized coaching session, and be sure to check out my on-demand workshops on topics like co-parenting with a narcissist, life after leaving, anxiety management strategies, and more. Again, that's drjamiezuckerman.com. You'll also find links to my interactive workbooks, merchandise, resources, and newsletter sign up. Next Up Narcissism is as much your podcast as it is mine. I want to hear your feedback and what you want to hear. So make sure to leave a podcast review wherever you listen, or send an email to nextup@drjamiezuckerman.com. Again, that's nextup@drjamiezuckerman.com. Be sure to subscribe so that you never miss an episode. And as always, thank you so much for listening. Make sure to tune in next week to see what's up next on Next Up Narcissism.